Hey guys, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be shopping my stash again, this time pulling out my top 10 warm tone palettes and taking feedback from yesterday. I'm going to be mixing it up a little bit and including both high-end and drugstore options. And I'm also going to try to make this video a little bit longer than yesterday's, which was under 5 minutes. I thought I had a lot of footage for that one, but by the time it was edited, I ended up not having that much. So anyway guys, let's go ahead and jump into the video and get started. First up, we have the Sigma Warm Neutrals Volume 2 palette, and everybody was talking about this one a while back. It was like every YouTuber did a video on it, and I was intrigued for sure, but I was very late to the party. I only got this one a few months ago, but I've fallen in love with it for so many reasons. Now, it's not a completely warm tone palette. You do have a couple of cooler tones down in this bottom row here, but I actually like that because it creates a little bit more variety, but I still feel that the overall looks that you get with this palette are very, very warm. And it's that variety that just really attracts me to it. I love mixing warm and cool tones on my eyes as well. And this passion fruit shade and toasty are excellent transition colors for my skin tone, and then you can deepen up the look with either henna or after hours if you want to add some green. And then this bittersweet gold is a beautiful, gorgeous lid shade, especially if you have more of like a fair skin tone. It's not too dark of a gold. And then also this pink beaming shade is beautiful as well. And as you can probably tell from the swatches and just how smooth they are, the formula is amazing. It's super, super pigmented and also just really smooth. The shimmer shades have that buttery feel. They don't skip around at all. They're not crumbly. And then the matte shades are just very velvety as well and not patchy in the slightest bit. So I am really, really enjoying this palette a lot. Next up, we have the Urban Decay Naked Honey palette. This is, again, one of my favorites that I got last year. I continue to use it all the time. It just has those really rich, warm, honey-colored shades and golds, but at the same time, it's not so warm where you have all those reds and oranges, so it's a little bit something different if you want to go with warm tones, but you don't necessarily want a red or an orangey look. And I love that, having a fair skin tone as well, because I can use every single shade in this palette. There's nothing that's too dark for me. There's some great transition shades in here as well, like this light honey brown. You also have this one, which is more of like a little bit more neutral, I would say. You also have a deep brown if you need to focus on the outer corner a little bit. Gorgeous lid shades as well, and all of them are very different from each other. You have kind of this ambery one. You also have this golden green color, and then this one, which is like a little bit more of a vibrant greenish gold. And then you have this darker, almost like olivey green, and then this one, which is more of a rose gold. And sometimes I feel like Urban Decay's palettes can be a little bit hit or miss. I think most of the time they're wonderful, but occasionally you get a dud. And in this case, I felt like the formula was one of the best ones they've ever done. It's just super blendable. Again, I feel like I'm repeating myself, but super pigmented. The shimmer shades are very smooth and not chunky. They don't have a ton of fallout to them. The matte shades are also very smooth and velvety. So this is definitely another winner for me. Next up, I can't make a warm tone video without talking about Soft Glam. So Soft Glam is one of my favorite palettes in my entire collection, warm tones, cool tones, everything, just because it is a beautiful color story and I just get so much use out of this one. Before this one came out, Modern Renaissance was like my ultimate warm tone palette. This one replaced that one because it's not quite as deep as Modern Renaissance. Most of the shades in here, again, are usable for someone like me who has a fair to light skin tone, but yet I also feel like it can work for deeper skin tones as well. So I think it's definitely a really versatile palette. And again, there's so many great transition colors in here. You can either choose Dusty Rose, which is a little bit more on the cool tone side. There are a few cool shades in here. And then Orange Soda and Burnt Orange. So depending on what kind of look that I want to do, I can choose any of those. Even Rustic, I can sheer out a little bit and make that a great transition. And then I can deepen it with Cypress Umber if I want to keep things more neutral, or with Mulberry if I want to do a little bit more of a warm tone look. And then the shimmer shades, again, you have a lot of great variety in here. You have the light pink, and then you have this deeper rosy shade, Sultry. You have a beautiful deep kind of antique gold, and then you have some lighter ones down here too if you want to pop it in the inner corner or just put it right in the center of your lid for a little bit more dimension. And then Sienna is also the perfect mid-tone shade. Formula-wise, this one is very, very pigmented. I would say my only complaint about Anastasia's formula in general is that it can be very powdery. There's a lot of kick up. You have to make sure that you tap off your brush really well. There are also some great dupes for this one out there as well if this one is a little bit out of your budget. There's one from C Color that's pretty much an exact shade for shade dupe, and that one is really, really good. Next up, we have the Tartelette and Bloom palette. This one is probably my ultimate favorite palette in my entire collection and the one that I reach for the most. This one is actually brand new. I bought a backup of it a while ago because I used it so much. I was hitting pan on so many different shades, which I almost never do, but when I just want to get up and go and not think about my eyeshadow, this is the palette that I reach for. So I can't wait to dip into this one again and just continue using it. But what I love about this, it's not a completely warm tone palette. I think it skews more warm than cool, but you do have a couple of cool tones like these taupes up here and also this dusty pink down here as well. But it's just so easy to use. You can go across each row and create a look, which is super simple. You have kind of these rosier tones down here that pair really well together. You have a neutral row that's a little bit less warm, and then you have this one up here, which is a little bit more cool and taupey. But obviously I like to jump around a lot, and you do have some beautiful transitions right down this column here. And then you have a couple of mid-tone shades. You have your deeper shades right here. Lid shades are beautiful as well. You have a lighter one, and then you have these few mid-tone shades, like you have this beautiful bronze and then this taupey shimmer. So I really think this one is awesome for somebody who wants warmer tone looks, but you don't want to go like the orange and red kind of route. I think this one is just really, really user-friendly, and it goes more towards like the neutral to warm side. And I feel like it skews more towards like the neutral to warm side. So I just can't get enough of this palette. And whenever anybody asks me what my favorite palette is, I have to recommend this one because it's so good. And I know that formula-wise, Tarte can sometimes be hit or miss. I especially avoid any of their holiday palettes. I think they're just not that great. But for some reason, this Tartelette series is wonderful. Any of the Tartelette palettes I've had great luck with as far as really good pigmentation, really great blendability, and just overall smoothness. I think it's a wonderful formula. One thing I do want to mention though is that they do have a pretty heavy vanilla scent. Just something to keep in mind if you're sensitive to fragrance. Next up, we have the Zoeva Spice of Life palette, and this one is such a gorgeous palette if you like a little bit more of those rosy tones, but you don't like all of the dark reds and oranges again. So I love that this one is warm, but it's not super dark. You have a nice variety of lid colors in here. You have this beautiful green one called the Flavor. Then you have like this deep eggplant purple, a red. You have this gorgeous bronze, this lighter pink one, and then this one called Unlike Any Other. Truly is like one of my favorite lid shades out of any of my palettes. It's so shiny and foiled. It's just like really easy if you want to just pop like this one in your crease and put this one on your lid for a quick and easy two-color look. But this shade just has like, it's not quite a silver. It's almost like a taupe. It has a little gray, a little brown, and just sort of like a duochrome effect when it's on your eyes. It's stunning, which you'll see in the swatches in just a second. But there's some great transitions in here. You have this one and also this one to go a little bit deeper. And then you have this deeper reddish brown right here for your outer corner. So I just feel like it's something a little bit different. And as you can see from the swatches, they're very smooth, nicely pigmented, and just overall not too dark of a palette when it comes to warm tones. So I think that's what I love about this one the most. Next up, on the more affordable side, we have the Colorpop Double Entendre palette. So this one, again, is an ultimate warm tone palette if you're not into the orange and the red shades. This is like warm neutrals at their absolute best. You have some beautiful matte transition colors. This one's a little bit more neutral. This one's more of like a warm peachy color. You have some really nice mid-tone mattes as well. You have your deeper one here in the outer corner. You have a couple different tones of matte ivory, and then the lid shades are also super gorgeous as well. You have this really nice kind of rose gold. Then you have a warm kind of medium gold, and then you have a lighter gold shade that's great for the inner corner again, or just to kind of top the look and make it pop a little bit. And as always, Colourpop's formula almost never disappoints me. I think that this one can definitely compete with all the high-end brands that I showed you, no problem. The pigmentation is always there, and they're so smooth and blendable and easy to work with. And then speaking of Colourpop, I also had to mention the California Love palette. This one came out over last summer, 2019, and I fell in love with this one too, just because even though it has warm tones like the Double Entendre, you have some other colors going on in here that are a little bit different. For example, this Sequoia shade I don't have in a lot of other palettes, and I find that it pairs so beautifully and just adds a little bit of interest to a warm tone look if you're using this one in your crease. It pairs well with any of the lid shades in this palette. You also have this gorgeous Gold Rush shade, which I think if you want to do like a really warm, kind of rusty colored eye, you could use this with either Surf Rider or Cahuenga. I can't remember if that's how you say that. I also get a lot of use out of this Diego shade, which is just a gorgeous metallic gold. It looks super shiny and foiled on your eyes, which I love. And the Bay is one of the most perfect transition shades ever. It's so gorgeous. The one shade I really don't use in this palette is the glitter, just because I am not a fan of glitter and I worry about it getting into my eyes. So I pretty much just skip that one, but the rest of the palette is amazing. And then here's a look at some swatches. You can really see how it varies a little bit from Double Entendre. I feel like there's just more variety in colors in here, and you can create looks that look a little bit different. With Double Entendre, I feel like you might get a lot of similar looks, but with this one, I feel like you can switch it up a little bit. Next up, we have the Too Faced Gingerbread Extra Spicy palette. So this one was limited edition. I think you might still be able to get it at QVC though. So if you can, I'll link that down in the description box below. But what I just loved about this palette was initially I didn't love it. When I first saw it, I thought it looked kind of boring. But as I swatched some of the shades in store, I fell in love with it. And when I took it home, I realized how many beautiful, warm, toasty looks I could do with this palette. It was perfect for fall, but I would still even use it to this day. It just has, again, some gorgeous transition shades. You have a dusty pink here, and then you also have this really light tan. You have this beautiful peachy shade. You can even use this mustardy yellow. It's like a super pale mustardy yellow in your crease. And then you also have some really gorgeous mid-tone mattes as well. So there's just so much variety in here. So it's just a beautiful, beautiful palette, and I found that every single color in this palette works well together, so you don't have to think too hard when you're putting looks together. It's kind of like no matter what you choose, everything looked great. And on top of that, the formula was fantastic. I find that the ones in these Too Faced metal tins are so much better than their cardboard palettes for some reason. They just go above and beyond as far as blendability, pigmentation. They're absolutely stunning. Next up, we have the Milani Pure Passions palette. So I talked about the Soft and Sultry one in my Cool Tone palette video as being one of my favorites. This one is absolutely, hands down, one of the best warm tones in my collection, hence why it's in this video. And you just have so much color variety in here. You have 2 rows of shimmer shades, and you have a gold, you have one that has a little bit more of a peachy tint to it, and then one that's a little bit more pink. And then you have these richer, deeper shimmers down here, like this gorgeous kind of burgundy shade. Then you have this one, which is a little bit more of like an rusty orangey brown, and then this one, which is like a deep rosy brown. And then you also have 2 rows of mattes, so you do have a matte ivory, you have these 2 transitions right here, and then you have your deeper and mid-tone shades down at the bottom. And just like Soft and Sultry, this one can compete with any of my high-end palettes. It's actually a pretty close dupe for the new Charlotte Tilbury Darling palette, which I talked about in a recent dupe video, so I'll link that up above in case you want to check that out. But really, this one, they were so super close. This one actually has more shades, so I feel like it's a much better value. And sadly, Milani seems to be discontinuing this one as well. It's on sale on their website, so if you don't want to miss out on it, I would definitely recommend picking it up as soon as you can. And then last but not least, we have the Profusion Mirage palette. And this one I got over the summer. It's so beautiful as far as just all the color variety. I know some of you guys aren't crazy about these huge palettes because they seem overwhelming, but I just think you can get so many different looks out of this one. And there's so many different warm tones going on. Like in the top couple of rows, you have kind of more traditional warm tones like the golds and the orangey colors. Then the bottom few rows has more of those rosy tones. And there are definitely some cooler shades in here. But overall, it's a really, really warm tone palette. And you have so many different, really pretty transition shades to pick from. Also, the lid colors, I mean, so many different varieties. I really love this one a lot. I think it makes such a nice impact. You have a couple of duochrome shades like this one and this one, which are beautiful. You have more of like a taupe if you wanted to go a little bit more on the cool tone side. So it's just a great mix. One thing to mention is it does have 3 pressed glitters. So if you're into pressed glitter, I think you'll like that about it as well. But even if you're not, there's so many other shades in here to pick from that you can pretty much just ignore those and still get a ton of different looks out of this palette. So I had to break up the swatches into two different parts just because it's too big to fit on my arm. So here we have the top couple of rows, which again are just like those more regular traditional warm tones. And the formula on this palette is actually really, really good. Sometimes Profusion can be a little bit hit or miss with the larger palettes, but I didn't really find any issues with most of the shades in this one. And then here's the second half of the palette with more of the rosy tones and then also a couple of cool tone shades as well. I think this one might be my favorite half of the palette just because it is so beautiful. I tend to gravitate towards these types of shades a little bit, and I think that this one is definitely a little bit more colorful than the first half of the palette. All right, guys, so that's all I have for today's video. I hope you liked this video and found it helpful. If you did, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And also, I think I'm going to focus on palettes first in this Shop My Stash series, and then I'll go into, other types of makeup as well. But for the rest of my palette videos, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what you'd like to see, whether it's, pretty springtime palettes, or my favorite colorful palettes, or just straight up, neutral brown palettes. I would love to hear your thoughts. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button down in the corner of your screen, and I'll see you all in my next video. Take care, guys. Bye.